Hello and welcome. You're watching Head to Head on UATV and I'm Alice Karajuk. Recently, the U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine, Kurt Volker, made a statement claiming that the so-called Luhansk People's Republic and Donetsk People's Republic are entities created by Russia and which need to be disbanded. According to him, they mask the Kremlin's role in the war and cement an ongoing conflict. And the only way to resolve it is the deployment of a UN peacekeeping mission in Donbas. To discuss this idea, we are joined in the studio today by Maksym Iali. He is expert on international relations and a senior research fellow of the Institute of World History of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. Hello, and thank you for being with us today.
Hello.
Mr. Iali, Mr. Volker has made a lot of comments on the situation in the east of Ukraine, but now he emphasized that there is no place for such entities as the self-proclaimed Luhansk People's Republic and Donetsk People's Republic in Ukraine's constitution. Why is he using this argument now?
Well, actually, he hasn't said anything new, because everybody knows that there are no such entities in Ukrainian constitution. Yes, he just repeated and recalled it, I guess, and we know that it is, from my point of view, connected with the fact that in March, I guess it will be after elections in Russia, presidential elections in Russia, is planned the meeting with Mr. Surkov, special representative of Russia, concerning resolvement of the conflict in Donbas. So he just pointed out the position, strong position of US, actually, which corresponds to Ukrainian position as well as of European countries such Germany and France.
Mm-hmm. Well, he is saying that the only way to restore peace is to invite the United Nations, and United Nations peacekeeping mission could be the chance to implement the Minsk agreement. What do you think of this?
Well, actually, as we know, since last autumn, this idea is discussed, and I'd like to recall that Mr. Putin proposed such variant, though in 2015 Mr. Poroshenko was the first one to say about it, but I guess we are coming now to the next stage of the discussion. As we know, already Mr. Volker mentioned even some countries which could participate in such peacekeeping mission. The only obstacle is that, as we know, the differences in approaches. As you know, Russia wants to deploy this mission to be deployed only on the brink,
only or on the confrontation line.
On the line, yeah. But we all understand, both US, I mean, and our European partners as well as Ukrainian government, that only the deployment on the whole territory, including the border with Russia, can solve the problem.
Of course.
And that's the point and the main obstacle. But from my point of view, this year we will see the results.
Mm-hmm. Well, recently Sweden has announced its readiness to join the peacekeeping mission of the United Nations in Donbas. Finland, Austria and Belarus expressed the willingness to participate as well. What is the probability for such a mission to take place?
I guess the probability is really high, and I judge from the some, I would say, factors, key factors from my point of view. One of them was so-called Kremlin list. Yes, as you know, recently published, which surprised not only experts around the world, even those who participate in preparation of it, because, as you know, no so-called wallets of Mr. Putin were named there, including the members of their families, as it was expected. And I guess some compromise was found between Russian and US governments, and from my point of view, we should also take into account that the heads of special services of Russia went to Washington at the beginning of this winter, before it was published. I guess it was also fact, and they discussed it, because everybody knows that if such information appeared in media, world media, before the elections in Russia, presidential, I would say re-election of Mr. Putin, it
right.
would be a big scandal, and I guess US pushed Russian part, and they agreed for US variant of peacekeeping mission, but only after already elections takes place.
But is there any proof that this kind of side talks have happened, and that Russian intelligence agents or special services spoke to the American ones?
It's a well-known fact, you know, even in Russian media it appeared that the head of FSB, intelligence, war intelligence, they all the most important, I would say, heads of the most important special services went to Washington, even though they are in the sanctioned list. That was I would say, a sensation of this news. And I'm sure they also discussed the deployment of peacekeeping mission of UN.
So the United States are trading basically this Kremlin list for the UN peacekeeping mission in the east of Ukraine.
Exactly, just as Russian Federation used to do it with their partners, including Ukraine, you know. Mm-hmm. For example, last gas war announced recently.
Mm-hmm. But to deploy this UN peacekeeping mission in the east of Ukraine and Donbas, UN Security Council should vote to create it. And how do you think that the UN Security Council can vote while Russia still has the right of veto?
I explained you why. Because Russia will... from my point of view, the final decision will be taken in October, from my point, just the beginning of November, and before that we will see like such statements from Mr. Volker, then again statements from Russian Federation that they disagree, etc., etc. But from my point of view, agreement between two parts has been already taken. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and why October? It's another question I can even answer from my point of view, because there are gonna be elections to American Congress, you know, and for Mr. Trump, it would be a big trump, so to say, yeah, mm-hmm. To use if Russian Federation agrees to deploy the peacekeeping mission, I mean US variant exactly, and for him it will be a great result, and he could say, you see, Mr. Obama couldn't do it, and I'm solving this conflict. And you know that the results of this election is very important for Mr. Trump, because, as you know, Democrats still hope to make him the first US president to be impeached, right? And of course, I guess they are preparing, and the investigation, I mean, Special Prosecutor Miller, just for the autumn, I mean, the results. Because if they want still hope, entertain a hope to impeach Mr. Trump, they need to win both chambers of American Congress. As you know, Republicans still have majority in both chambers. Therefore, the only chance for them to discriminate Mr. Trump before the elections. Mr. Trump and his team, I'm sure, quite aware of it, and it will be like a contra-strike, I would say, the decision to deploy a peacekeeping mission and to say, you see, I finally won this battle with Russia. And unlike Mr. Obama, as you know, he criticized him so much.
Yes, so this is a good argument for him of restoring peace in the world.
Of course, and to win elections. I mean, because much depends on its results. I mean, not only concerning American Congress, but also elections 2020.
Mm-hmm. Well, still for Ukraine, it looks like win-win solution because it is important to solve the conflict. But what timeframes are possible for the actual deployment of peacekeepers? After the decision, possible
yes,
decision
after
in October.
the decision is made, still, as you know, Mr. Walker also stated in the same interview that it will take at about half a year to conduct elections. Okay, it's another question, yeah. But I guess the same, at least half a year to deploy, because also to solve all the technical issues, to agree how many peacekeepers there should be, you know, there are 20,000, 30,000 different variants, which countries to participate, because it will be also very discussable question. It depends a lot. Of course, Russian Federation will try to put their satellites, I would say, countries like Belarus, the same, Kyrgyzstan, etc., etc. And of course, Ukraine will not agree, and it will also take time. So I guess the real results, it will be already after elections in Ukraine in spring 2019.
Okay. But in your opinion, which countries should participate in the peacekeeping mission?
Well, Sweden is quite a good variant. Austria, the same. They have experience of Scandinavian countries,
and
I
why?
guess.
Yes.
Because they're neutral, and even more, they have experience of resolving. As you know, Austria, Vienna, the capital of Austria, is the capital of such agreements, I would say, yes, discussions. So neutral, I guess, neutral states which are not involved in both sides. Because, for example, if there is such countries as France, yeah, Russia will say, okay, they are not neutral, yeah. Mm-hmm. So I guess neutral states. India, even Mr. Klimkin mentioned during his visit, for example, China, possibly from Latin America. That depends a lot which governments are ready to send their peacekeepers. That's also a question.
Well, in your opinion, are there any other ways to end the war in the east of Ukraine despite a UN peacekeeping mission, or are there any other concrete plans that have been suggested by Ukraine's international partners?
Well, as you know, it has passed already 4 years since it started, and different variants were used, but none of them was successful. So all the members, including members of Normand format, Germany, France, and US, which is leading now country in negotiations with Russia, definitely, agree that UN peacekeeping mission is the only way to stop the war. And I guess no other variants can change the situation.
And what do you think about Kremlin's rhetoric recommending Ukraine to develop the direct dialogue with the militants in the east of Ukraine?
Of course, they have always been saying and repeating the same, because if we start the dialogue with so-called DNR and LNR, it means that we agree that it is a civil war in Ukraine, but not Russian aggression. And that's what Russian Federation wants, including the president, Mr. Putin, who still wants and dreams to get to become a peacekeeper, yes, but to change his status from aggressor to peacekeeper.
Well, that would be a very impressive and hopefully impossible step for Mr. Putin, but we really hope that your positive forecast on deployment of UN peacekeepers will eventually come true, and thank you so much for this interesting conversation.
You're welcome. We'll see it soon, I guess.
That was Maksym Iali, expert on international relations. Thank you for watching Head to Head. I'm Oles Gerjuk. Goodbye.